Hi Floss fans, my name's Ella and this is my channel Spectrum Stitcher, where I talk about all things cross stitch and other crafts that I'm interested in as well. Welcome back. If this is not the first time you've visited me, thank you so much for coming back, and welcome if you're new. I'm glad you found me and I hope you enjoy your visit with me. Before I proceed, I just want to acknowledge that I'm filming this video from Wathaurong country in Geelong, Australia, and I encourage you to go and find out what land, Indigenous land you are on, wherever you may be in the world. It's a really important thing to know and acknowledge. I pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging from the Wathaurong land on which I am. So I said hi to the Floss fans at the start. I just want to acknowledge or give a shout out to my friend Cora, who dubbed herself a Floss fan very kindly after seeing my first couple of videos. So I think I might use that from now on, Cora. I like the idea of having Floss fans, whether there be one or much more than that. It makes my heart very warm to think that there might be some people getting enjoyment out of this video. So thanks for the idea, Cora. Some other things at the start. It's really important, I think, that we all normalise sharing our pronouns. So I always like to share that my pronouns are she, her. And aside from cross stitch, the other things I like to talk about on this channel are climate change, particularly coal's contribution to climate change, because I'm a PhD researcher and that's what this is about. Sorry if I went a bit weird there. One of my children just put their thumbs up as they went past on the way to the bathroom, so there might be a few interruptions like that tonight, but we'll see how I go. Keeping it real. So yeah, I like to talk about my PhD thesis and things that I've found interesting and that I'm learning about. I also like to talk about the fact that I am neurodiverse, so I'm on the autism spectrum, and I like to share things that I'm learning about that. It's a fairly new diagnosis to me, and fairly new knowledge that I have about myself, so I like to share what I've been discovering about that as I go along. Also, thank you very much for the fantastic feedback and generous comments and support that I've received since I put up the video in which I interviewed my gran about her crafting. If you haven't seen that video already, it's just one video ago. It was very recent, just a day ago that I posted it, or maybe 2 days by the time you see this video. But yeah, it was a really important thing that I really wanted to do. My gran has an amazing legacy, even though she's still very much with us, but I can't think of a better word, but a very amazing wealth of crafting knowledge and works of art that she has made over the course of her life. And I thought that you would enjoy, and that I would enjoy celebrating that. And so now, and some of the comments that have been made on the video are to this end. It is like having a piece of oral history about yeah, a very important woman in my life and my family. But it's been interesting too to see the comments from people who have known my gran in the community, whether it was through the amateur theatre companies that she was very much part of, acting as well and singing and dancing, as well as making theatre costumes, or the fact that she was a primary school teacher and taught a whole lot of prep students in their first year of school, and made a really lasting impression. I had a lot of comments from people who were taught by my gran and still remember her teaching them to read and write, as well as things like knit. So it's been really lovely to celebrate my gran and all of the generous learning that she's imparted on people over her life so far. Yeah, I think more generally it's really important to celebrate the people behind craft in our community. You know, the people behind the needlework samplers or the beautiful quilted bedspreads. I think that, you know, in history generally, and because crafting is still predominantly done by women, in history generally, the role of women and the lives of women are not emphasised enough. And so I want to capture, the amazing contributions of women to society, and this being only one very small facet. And also how that's changing and evolving, and to what extent handicrafts have always been done by more diverse groupings, including gender non-binary people, neurodiverse people like myself, and from all cultures across the world. So, I'd be interested to hear your feedback as to whether you enjoyed the format of me interviewing someone, if there's interest, and I'm certainly interested in interviewing more people about what crafting means to them, and you know, whether it's mindfulness, relaxation, or a way to clothe their family, or show love to their family, or to celebrate their heritage. I'm sure the list goes on, and I'd love to hear more about that from more people. So if you're interested to hear, I'm certainly interested to keep interviewing people, and in fact I think I'm going to do it anyway, just for my own learning and celebrate. I just love talking about. I could talk about needlework and stitching till the cows come home, so it's just such a great joy to have another excuse to do that. Hopefully watch this space, and I'll find some other people within my family, my friendship group, my community and beyond to share with you and to celebrate, so we can all celebrate together their amazing craft. So just before I jump into my own cross-stitch works in progress and finishes over the last little while, it has been a little while. School holidays with 2 small children and Christmas and all of that caught up with me. So this is sort of the first time in a while I've had to share with you all. But before I jump into that, I'm just going to share a little bit about what I've been researching and just do a little bit of a PhD spotlight for you. If you're not interested in hearing about climate change, just skip forward a few minutes. But even if it's not really your cup of tea, I do encourage you just to open your mind and listen for a couple of minutes, and you might learn something. I certainly really love it when other Flosstubers share with me things that interest them, because I love learning. So I just wanted to explain a bit more behind my thesis, which is following the adoption of the Paris Agreement. Are regulatory pathways opening up? Are we seeing the opportunity for coal to be regulated? And last time I explained that coal makes a significant contribution to climate change. So 44% of energy-related carbon dioxide emissions annually come from coal. So if coal contributes to climate change, the question that I look at as a lawyer is, how is it being regulated by the law? What's the law doing about coal? And at the international level, we don't have an international coal treaty. You know, we don't have something like the Paris Agreement, in which the international community, state parties have signed on to agree to do something about coal, about the way it should be regulated. And you know, coal's very different than other fossil fuels. Other fossil fuels often have regulatory bodies and institutions that have evolved to influence the way that they're regulated worldwide. But coal sort of falls through the regulatory cracks at the international level. And I'll maybe share next time a bit about how that's also mirrored at the Australian level, where I'm from. But let's just stick international for now. So if we don't have an international coal treaty that says, how coal should be regulated and what we should do about these emissions from coal, then I suppose we should look at the Paris Agreement and say, well, the Paris Agreement says what the international community's agreed in relation to climate change. What does the Paris Agreement say about coal? And the Paris Agreement is silent on fossil fuels, obviously which coal is a part, and it leaves state parties, it leaves the states it leaves it to their discretion as to how they will decide to reduce their emissions. So there's the temperature goal, which says that the world aims to hold the global average temperature increase to less than 1.5 degrees and pursue efforts to keep that below 2 degrees as well. So, but it leaves it up to state parties to decide how they're going to help achieve that. And that's through this mechanism called the Nationally Determined Contributions, or NDCs. And obviously, it's not in a lot of states' economic interests to decide to reduce emissions through reducing their reliance on fossil fuels in the immediate term. There's a lot of data and science and research coming out that says if you pivot to renewables, that can be economically advantageous as well. But there is that shift is costly. So a lot of states are deciding or haven't yet made the decision to reduce the fossil fuel reliance. And Australia is definitely one of those. We did recently, in 2021, have the Glasgow Climate Conference. They call it Conference of the Parties, or COP. That was COP number 26. And there was a climate pact, an agreement, at that conference that talked about how the parties are all going to try to work to achieve the Paris Agreement's temperature goal and other aims. And in that, in a draft form of that, it talked about phasing out coal, and specifically named coal, not just coal as part of a broader fossil fuels, but specifically coal. But in the negotiation process, that was watered down, diluted to phasing down. Now, the Paris Agreement says that the aim is to reach net zero emissions by the year 2050. And there's a significant difference, therefore, in phasing out, which is just on the ordinary meaning of that word, eliminating, versus phasing down, which is, gradually reducing, just on the ordinary meaning of that word. So there's been a lot of commentary that says that that last-minute negotiation really will have a big impact on whether we'll see coal eliminated by 2050, and others say, well, even if it is diluted, specifically mentioning coal is a step forward in acknowledging that this is something that needs to be addressed. And we don't really know what the legal implications of that wording in that agreement will be yet, and that's something that I'll be looking at in my thesis. But anyway, we don't really have a strong regulation of coal by the Paris Agreement and the climate regime at the moment. The state of everything is that each country can decide how they're going to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, and that means that they could increase their production or consumption of coal and then reduce emissions in other ways. And certainly in Australia, our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, has said that he's not planning to reduce Australia's exports and productions and consumption of fossil fuels, including coal, and instead says that the way that Australia plans to reduce its emissions is through technology. There's not been a lot of specificity about what technology he's referring to there. So there's been a lot of disappointment, myself included, in relation to how Australia is really going to make a contribution to fixing the climate crisis that we're facing. Anyway, so if we don't have that regulation of coal, well, why is that a problem? There's the temperature goal, and something attached to the temperature goal that's developed is this tool called the carbon budget. And that's a tool for tracking our progress, our global progress towards the temperature goal. And the carbon budget refers to the remaining carbon humanity can emit before the temperature goal is exceeded. So if we just look at Australia's coal for a moment, it's been calculated according to the carbon budget that 95% of Australia's coal reserves need to remain unburned for the 2-degree temperature goal to be met. So the carbon budget would be exceeded if Australia were to exploit its coal reserves. So that's just Australia, okay? You can look at how your own country and how your own country's policies, if we have any international viewers, which I am presuming, but I hope that I do one day, because this Flosstube community is such a broad community, and I'd love to be part of that broader community. So yeah, you can track your own country's climate policies and see how they fit within a carbon budget, and what projections that has for meeting the temperature goal. And you can check that at a website called Climate Action Tracker. I'll link that in the description box below. And it's got this fantastic infographic using a thermometer, which shows where your country's climate policies sit on a degrees scenario. So it might say that Australia's climate policies are more consistent with a 3.5 degrees global average temperature increase scenario. And you can see where your country sits. It's a really great thing to go and find out that information, so that you can, when you're making your choices at the ballot box in your own country, decide what type of policies you want to support. So it's just all part of educating ourselves about where our votes go, and making an educated decision. Okay, so I'll stop sharing about climate change now. Thank you so much for indulging me in that. I really do enjoy sharing with people about what I'm learning with my research. Just before I go to the stitching, I just wanted to share what a smaller part of what I've been learning in relation to my autism recently. And I'll try not to be too somber about this, but I do find it empowering when I hear other people share about their experiences as a neurodiverse person, whether they be a positive or negative experience. It makes me feel not alone. So if I can share with one person that is either neurodiverse or supporting someone who is, and this helps them feel not alone, then I think it's worthwhile sharing. But recently I had my first experience, bearing in mind that my diagnosis is quite recent. I had my first experience of someone disbelieving that I'm a person who is on the autism spectrum, and denying that I was when I shared with them that's who I am. And it was it felt like a slap to the face. I felt quite numb. I went through stages of grief in relation to that, so numbness and anger and sorrow, and now I think I've made peace with it, and I want to use it as an opportunity to strengthen myself and to grow. But it really, I suppose because I've been surrounding myself with really supportive people and educating myself through other people who are neurodiverse and things like that, and really surrounding myself with as much of a neurodiverse and supportive community as I can, it was quite a shock to find someone who I know that didn't agree with me, or didn't, it's not about agreeing with me, but just denied who I am. I think it's a really powerful experience to have now that I've gone through the stages of grief about it, because it really made me feel stronger in myself about being a neurodiverse woman, because I didn't for a second doubt who I am despite what that person said. And it's the first time I've had that experience, so it was quite empowering in a way, now that I've digested it all. And it also made me reflect on, well, why would someone question who I am when I share that with them, particularly in relation to autism? And I think it's because there's a really uneducated perception that maybe autism numbers are increasing. And that's of course not true. I think there's always been, and I'm not an expert in this field, I'm just speaking as someone who's neurodiverse and who's trying to learn about it as much as I can. But, I think from what I understand, there's always been the same amount of autistic people in the world, percentage-wise. It's just that our abilities to identify and diagnose and understand, and our diagnostic tools have developed, and so we're now able to identify those people more easily. And so I think, this person's perception was that, everyone's autistic these days. And, I think that perception comes from a lack of education and awareness about the diagnostic tools for autism, and particularly in relation to women. It was originally thought that women couldn't be autistic and it was just something experienced by boys. But women can, it's just that they present differently, and the diagnostic tools have had to evolve to be able to identify women who are on the autism spectrum. And I think that's what I've learned about my autism recently, is that it's really hurtful when someone denies who I am to me. There's some miseducation or misunderstanding out there about autism, and it makes me feel like I want to help raise awareness and reduce stigmas and things like that really just shouldn't exist. All right, on to the stitching. Thank you so much for watching this far, if you have, and I hope that you've learned something or had some food for thought with what I've shared today. So I have a finish to share with you, and if you see me looking down, which, as I've said to you before, eye contact's not my strong suit anyway, so you're not missing out on much. But if I'm not always, eyeballing the lenses, because I've got some notes down here that I'm trying to keep to. But let's talk about cross stitch. And I have had a finish since I last spoke with you. And if you are my partner and you know who you are, skip forward by about 5 minutes, because I'm about to show a gift for you, for my partner, for Valentine's Day. And I'd like to not spoil it. And we know how much I love to talk, so maybe, I think 5 minutes will probably do it. I'm not a very succinct person, and I'm loving myself sick about this finish that I've had, because I have played around with the pattern and done a color conversion, so changed the pattern, changed all the colors, and that's something I've never done before. I'm usually someone who likes to follow the pattern to the T, and so I'm really proud of my growth at giving something a bit more flexible a go, given that that's not really in my nature usually. So I'm feeling really excited about that personal growth, and this piece really represents that for me. So this pattern is in a Punch Needle and Primitive Stitcher magazine. It's the spring issue of 2020, and it's called Spring in My Heart by Barbara Anna, and we all know how much I love Barbara Anna. So I'll show you the pattern first, and then you can see how much I've kept with the spirit of what Barbara Anna did, but really changed it to suit, instead of a spring theme, I've gone with a very cutesy Valentine's Day theme. So you can see in the pattern there that you'll see in a moment, I've changed the colours. I've kept the key and the flowers, the love heart, and the sort of Quaker stars in the background. but there's a couple of little bunny rabbits on either side of the flowers there on top of the key, and I took them out. And also the word spring, I've taken that out and put in my initials and my partner's initials. So you'll see that in a moment. But yeah, that's from the spring issue of 2020 of Punch Needle and Primitive Stitcher. I have a digital subscription to that, and it's been worth its weight in gold, or worth the subscription fee. Yeah, it's very reasonably priced, and there's so many great patterns in it. So check that out online. But without further ado, here is my finish. So you'll see I have gone for a completely different colour palette. And I am in love with it. So I'll zoom in a little bit. I'm not sure how much you can see there. And I will share my colour palette with you in a moment. But I've gone with, you know, bold reds, some medium pinks, some pale pinks and white. I kept the key colour the same, changed the greens in the flower, and I just had fun playing with colour and taking out the bunny rabbits. When I took out the bunny rabbits, I've put in some extra doodads to, you know, fill the gaps. But I think, you know, Barbara Anna's design, you know, it was with great trepidation I decided to change it, because in general, you know, her colour theory and her patterns are just so divine. I would never want to change one. And the thing that empowered me to change this for myself and do a conversion was because I was changing the theme behind the design. So that was for spring. If I was stitching this for a spring piece in my home, I would have followed it to the letter. But because I wanted to find something for Valentine's Day, and I hadn't come across any charts that really spoke to me, I thought, hang on a sec, I love that big love heart. What about I just change the colours? And I went into my stash from the Thread Club, a stash that I've been building up from A Stitch in Time Hobart, their Thread of the Month club, started pulling out threads. And it was great. It was a bit of trial and error, because sometimes I'd stitch something in and I wouldn't like how the colours looked together stitched up, and so I changed it. So it was a little bit slower going than it probably would have been otherwise, but I loved it. I felt creative, and I loved the finished result. I was worried that if I took matters into my own hands, that the finished result wouldn't look as good as if I just followed the rules or followed the instructions. But for what I wanted to do with this, I'm as happy with the finish as if I'd just followed the pattern, probably even a bit more happy with it, because I'm proud of my own personal growth. But anyway, I'll show you the pattern once again, or the finish once again. And I need to get a wriggle on and fully finish this. Thinking of putting it in an embroidery hoop, just because I'm confident with that finishing technique. It would look good as a little pillow, but I'm not. I might have pushed myself beyond my comfort zone as far as I can for this one, and also just with the fact that Valentine's Day is this weekend, I want to get this done. But I'll see. We'll see what happens. Now I'll show you the threads that I used. Now I will put details of the colour conversion I did of the flosses that I used in the description box below, so you'll be able to see it there. But I just pulled from stash, and I think the main colour that inspired me was Cupid by Classic Colorworks. Cupid. And it's this variegated maroon to like bright red. And that I knew I wanted to do the heart, the main heart in that. And then I just built from there. And in the flowers of Barbara Anna's design, there was a light colour, a medium colour, and a darker colour. So I chose 3 pinks from stash, and it took a while to get that right, because sometimes I'd choose 2 pinks that were blending into each other and I wouldn't get the contrast, or the contrast was too high, so that took a while. But I chose these 3 pinks. As I said, just have a look in the description box below for the specifics of what colours I used. And then I chose a cream. Choosing the greens was a bit of trial and error as well. Chose 2 greens. They're both Classic Colorworks greens. So Desert Mesquite, I don't know how to say that word, and Wilderness. And then I chose a gold, some DMC gold, so 3820 and 780. And a brown. I stuck with the brown in Barbara Anna's pattern. No, actually. I think she might have had a different brown for the key, like a mahogany colour. But also 3371 was also in the design. And I just decided to go for 3371 for the key, as well as where it was in the windows of the houses and things like that. And then I also thought it was cute that I decided to have little pink houses. I'll just show you one more time, because I was like, nah, you can't have pink houses. And I thought, oh, yes, I can. So I've got white and pink houses, which makes me happy. And then deciding what colour to do for our initials, and also, you know, charting that. Not that I wouldn't say I charted it. I used Hands Across the Sea samplers on their website, have a lot of free downloadable alphabets. So I went there, I used those as inspiration, and then did what I could to fit it into the gap that I had in the design. And that was a bit of trial and error too, because I tried to sort of handwrite it on the chart on the PDF using the highlighting function, and it was a bit messy, and so I just decided to sort of stitch it stitch it without graphing it properly and charting it properly. So chart it as I stitched, I suppose, would be the way to say that. And that meant that I ripped it out probably about 3 times before I got it right. But it's the way that it was frustrating, but it was the way that suited my brain. I started sort of going cross-eyed trying to look at the graph. So it probably told me that pattern designing is maybe something that's a bit challenging for me, but I don't have to do everything, do I? And we'll see what happens down the track anyway. But, and I believe in the ability to grow and learn new skills. But anyway, as I said, absolutely in love with this finish. I'm hoping that my partner will be absolutely in love with it too. So that was the first thing that I wanted to share with you. And it's my only finish for this period since I last spoke with you. But I've got quite a few whips to show you next. Oh, before I show you whips, I was going to share with you what is behind me, because I'm trying to stop you from getting bored of my curtains, my plain Venetian blinds. So I've decided to put up a different fabric backdrop from my fabric stash each time. And today I have a lovely piece of May Gibbs Snuggle Pot and Cuddle Pie fabric. And yeah, I absolutely love Snuggle Pot and Cuddle Pie. I've got the book to show you here just in case any international viewers, you can tell I really, I know that I've got Catherine and Victoria from Neat and Knot by the Sea in New Zealand, but I'm not sure if my reach goes beyond that yet. But you can tell I'm a bit excited about trying to attract some international floss fans. But yeah, this is Snuggle Pot and Cuddle Pie by May Gibbs. It has the most beautiful illustrations, and it's all about these gum nut babies, Snuggle Pot and Cuddle Pie, who live in the Australian bush and the adventures that they have. And yeah, I've been in love with their stories and the illustrations since as long as I can remember. And in fact, when I found out I was going to be a mum, I wanted to do a Snuggle Pot and Cuddle Pie themed nursery. But at the time, there wasn't a lot of decor and fabric and things like that available. But since then, since my kids have become probably, they're not as interested in Snuggle Pot and Cuddle Pie as they were when they were toddlers. There have been a lot of licensed fabrics and things like that come out, and then I was like, oh, I can't collect them anymore because I don't have a baby's room to put it up in. But then I thought, hang on, I love it. So I've just started. It's very hard to stop myself buying Snuggle Pot and Cuddle Pie themed things, but I bought myself a whole lot of this fabric because I thought I might, in a currently non-existent but hopefully one day future craft room, I would love some curtains with this fabric. And yeah, I've also bought a few decals, iron-on transfers that I've put on a few of my project bags for cross-stitch. I just buy a plain calico pencil case and then put on the iron-on transfer. So yeah, I just love surrounding myself with the gorgeous whimsy that is Snuggle Pot and Cuddle Pie. And that's what's behind me today. All right, on to whips. So I've been really loving using my Stitchy Journal. This is a bespoke letterpress 2022 planner. I've shared with you before that they're a antique printing press in Sydney, Australia. I'll link them below. And yep, I just picked up their 2022 planner. I think it's really beautiful. And I've been loving recording my stitching. So I haven't, unlike a lot of people in the Flosstube community, I haven't been decorating mine with stickers, because I think these pages within this book are very pretty on their own. And also I'm trying not to spend money on, you know, extra craft supplies. Like I'd prefer to probably invest it in my cross-stitch supplies than stickers, although I feel like I'm trying to hold myself back, because I do love beautiful stickers, and so do my kids. So we'll see what happens. We'll see how long my reserve holds out. But yeah, I've been enjoying that. So, you know, even when I don't stitch, I sort of say where I was and what I was doing. I was lucky enough to go away for a couple of days, for a couple of little trips with my kids and some lovely friends and family throughout the summer here. And yeah, I've recorded that, you know, if I didn't get stitching done, you know, and I was away at the beach somewhere, I record that. So I haven't stitched every day, and here's the start of February. But I'm proud of how much stitching I'm doing. It's making me feel really good and calm, and I'm getting all those benefits and also feeling productive. So the first whip I want to share with you is Otono by Satsuma St. I'll get the cover photo up for you. Oh, the glare is real. There it is, Otono by Satsuma St. I'll put the, here's the title of the pattern, but I will also put it in the description box below. And last time I think I showed you this, I'd done the frame, and this was my new start that I asked you all to vote on what I should start, and Catherine from Not by the Sea gave me a vote, and I said, all right, I'll go for it. So there were no other votes, but that's okay. She, you know, I really wanted to start it anyway, and she gave me an excuse. If my eyes are looking weird, I've got a person who must need the toilet very much going again. I think they just want to listen to me YouTubing. My kids have now been asking if they can have their own channels, and I've said that they can make their own videos and share it with our family. And they're a bit annoyed they think that I'm holding them back, but I'll just wait till they can get a bit older and hopefully understand better the implications of sharing information on the internet before I let them do that. But there's been a lot of encouragement from my kids. It's funny actually, because they don't, in relation to my PhD, they're like, oh, what is this thing that you're always saying you have to do? And we'd like, you know, I say, you know, I'm writing and reading and then writing about things, and they know it's about coal, and you know, I think they're sort of begrudgingly supportive, but they know that, you know, sometimes I go through periods of stress and late nights, and which they have to sort of accommodate and be really understanding when I'm going through an intense period of trying to get a chapter written or something. But with my YouTube, they've just been like, oh, Mum, you know, that's the best. We've been telling our friends about your YouTube channel, and can we watch it? And so they've been really, really, really encouraging of it, which has been really sweet. And it's just interesting to see that contrast, that they see sort of cross-stitch as a really productive and joyful thing. And my writing is something that they like, yeah, that's pretty removed, and we don't quite get what you're even writing about. And but yeah, I'd like to sort of maintain for them that value judgment, I suppose, or the lack of value judgment about crafting, and that it is a joyful and productive thing that is as equal as any other time spent. Anyway, because I think sometimes I struggle with myself saying, you know, oh, you know, it's only cross-stitching or something, but it isn't only cross-stitching. And I think if you go back and watch that video with my gran, you know, it's not only crafting, it's giving something really special to someone you love, or creating something of significance to yourself. Relaxation, a means of clothing your family. You know, this is a really important thing that we spend our time on for ourselves, for others in our lives, and the broader community. So anyway, great for mental health. You know, I'll get off my soapbox now. But yeah, last time I had the grid, and now I've started filling it in. So the first one I did was this tree down here, which it's got a deceptively large amount of colours in it. For example, this is a variegated floss here, which is different than this solid yellow floss here. But so it was a bit time consuming, but it was very joyful. And then this beautiful leaf. It's got 3 different variegated flosses in it, 1, 2, and then 3. So yellow one, an orangey one, and a russet one, and a deeper red. And actually I did the stem and the veins on the leaves first, and that's a bright purple, and I was like, how is this going to work for an autumn leaf? But I'm learning with Satsuma St that, you know, her colour choice is always on point, so just go with it. But I really loved stitching that. Now I've started outlining, well, started stitching the apple, and I've done the leaves and the outer band of colour, and now I'm going to start filling it in. And I think the apple is one of the main things that attracted me to this pattern, because it's so retro and cool. And the other thing that attracted me was the mushrooms, which I haven't stitched yet, but are coming up soon. So I'm really happy with the progress I've made there. I don't want to put too much pressure on myself, but I'd like to have this done by, you know, autumn here, so that I can because it's an autumn piece, and I'd love to be able to display that for autumn. Although, you know, that would depend on me getting it framed, which I do intend to do in this, and, you know, that's pretty pricey, but so we'll see how I go. But I could at least, you know, tack it up and enjoy it for autumn, and then put it away and get it framed at another time. Okay, so my next whip that I worked on is, and I've realised I'm a bit out of order with what I'm talking with you about, but oh well, you'll be supportive, I'm sure, or understanding. It's just me that doesn't like getting out of order. So I've been stitching the seasonal Japanese pin cushions by Modern Folk Embroidery. Sorry, they're 4 seasons Japanese pin cushions by Modern Folk Embroidery. Here is the pattern. And I had the summer or Natsu portion of it done last time, and this time I turned to the Fuyu, which is winter portion. Now I have a little person presenting me with something. I think they want me to show their stitching. If I won't let them come on camera, they want me to show their their sewing. I gave them a sewing kit for Christmas, so I think they've just put it on in my line of sight to say, look, please show this. So I might do that so that they can watch this video and enjoy that at some point. So I'll do that in a moment. Anyway, I'll show you what my progress with where I'm at with this Modern Folk embroidery piece. I'm really, really loving it. And as I've shared with you before, my intention is to just to not stitch it as individual pin cushions, to stitch it as one piece with all 4 seasons, and then display it behind some Japanese kokeshi dolls that I have. And they're black and white, so I've chosen a black and not black and white, they're black and red, and so I've chosen a black and red DMC floss to complement those kokeshi dolls. So without further ado, here is where I'm at. So here's Natsu, here's Fuyu, and I'm really happy with how that's looking, and I'm really enjoying, I think as I've shared before, selecting which flosses I use for, you know, so where do I put the red. I think I'm going to use the red on this sort of interior border, and then use little pops of red. And you can see that I've also stitched the boxes for the other 2 seasons. So there you go. That's stitched on, oh, I should have shared that the Autunno sampler is being stitched on plain white 14 count Aida, because I really like how the retro sort of colours really pop off of that. And then this is being stitched, seasonal pin cushions are being stitched on 18 count Russian caramel is the colourway, 18 count Aida from number 12 Stitch Co. But I will put that in the description box below. Okay, so my next whip that I want to share with you is the Easter Hare by Barbara Anna. So I think I shared with you that I was going to start some Easter patterns to hopefully have one of them, or maybe two of them, but probably only one of them, displayed by Easter in my home, because I really loved the seasonal stitches that I did for Christmas. So I want to, increase my supply of Easter decorations. So I found this pattern in the 2021 spring edition of the Punch Needle and Primitive Stitcher magazine by Barbara Anna is the pattern designer. This is Easter Hare. I love her dress. I love the garland she's holding. I love the fact that they are holding a, and I shouldn't really presume their pronouns, should I? They are holding a key, as Barbara Anna really loves to always put keys in her patterns. And then the Easter eggs as well. I just think it's absolutely gorgeous. So I kitted that up and I started it. I started it on a piece of 16 count Zweigart Aida in the colour Dirty, using the called for flosses. I wasn't going to muck with every Barbara Anna design that I came across this month, just the one that I wanted to convert for Valentine's Day. Where is my stitching on this large piece of fabric? That's a good question. As you will have seen if you've watched my video with Gran, ironing is not my strong suit, so forgive me for that. And I tend to just like to iron my pieces at the end when I'm going to fully finish them. But I'll hold that up nice and close. That is my start. I'm loving it so far. This was maybe only 2 days of stitching, or 3 days of stitching, or 3 sessions of stitching. And the only reason, I should have just pushed through and I think finished it, but then, you know, as people say, squirrel, I decided to start or do something else. But I can't wait to get back to this very soon and hopefully have it done by Easter. And it's funny actually, I think in my last regular Flosstube video, I was saying how I've been really taken by the fox that everyone, or it seems that everyone's stitching from Cottage Garden Samplings, I think it is, the Year in the Woods stitch along that's happening. But I felt conflicted about that because, you know, foxes are pests in Australia and blah, blah, blah. Then I realised how many patterns I want to stitch and have already purchased that have rabbits in them, which are also pests in Australia. Thought, yeah, Ella, I think you're already beyond that point. And I think that it's very different to stitch a design that you find pleasing that happens to have a fox or a rabbit in it, than it is to, you know, not acknowledge the, you know, ecological warfare between pests and native animals in this very precious ecosystem we have in Australia. And even beyond that, I mean, there's a school of thought that we shouldn't be nativist in relation to sentient beings. You know, animals are sentient beings, and so there's some people that think that, you know, the introduced species should have as much consideration in our policies as the nativist one. I'm not sure where I sit on that. I don't consider myself as sufficiently knowledgeable about it. I have studied biodiversity law at uni, and so that's where I was introduced to some of those ideas, but yeah, I'm still wrangling with those ideas. But anyway, I've decided that regardless of what I think more broadly, I am okay with stitching a fox or a rabbit. So I have ordered that chart with the fox because I think it's absolutely gorgeous. It's just so pleasing. And when it comes in, I'll show it to you. Anyway, these, for those interested, these are the called for flosses for the Easter hare. I have a feeling I'm digressing a lot tonight, and oh well, but feel free to skip ahead to when you see pretty stitching if you feel like I'm waffling too much. But I do like that there's some DMC variegated threads in these ones as well. There's sort of this like greeny, pastel-y rainbow one, and this, my threads are a bit messy, but espresso colour. It's got sort of blacks and browns, bluey blacks and browns in it that I really like. So anyway, that's the gorgeousness that is this colour palette for Easter Hare by Barbara Anna. So I will show you my next whip now. It's the other Easter pattern that I said I was going to start last video. And it's actually down here. But it's Sweet Spring by another Satsuma St pattern. Here is the cover photo here. Sweet Spring by Satsuma St. And this is quite a small start that I made, but a start's a start. It's in my whip pile, so excuse all the rustling. But here is my start. So I'm stitching this on a 14 count Aida. I'm not sure what the colorway is. It doesn't say on the packaging, but it's a fabric color that just really doesn't come across well on camera. This is reading a bit more grey in the camera to you, but it's actually just a very pale sort of celery. I'll get the stitching up the right way, shall I? It's sort of like a celery sort of pastel-y green. And I've stitched the sweet little butterfly, which I really enjoyed. And I've started stitching the rabbit once again. No ironing, but there's the rabbit's eye here and nose there. And I'm loving the purple in that. But yeah, this little butterfly is where I started, and it just made me feel really hopeful and sunny on the day that I stitched that butterfly. So they are my cross stitch whips. Now, if you watched my video with me and my Gran, you'll see that Gran is a very multi-craftual person, and I intend for this Flosstube channel to be about other crafts, not just cross stitch. And I'm trying to be a multi-craftual person too, and so I want to share some other crafts that I do from time to time. Before I came to cross stitch, I was an avid knitter, and I would like to show you some previous finishes of knitting that I've done in other videos, and hopefully I'll get back to some knitting soon. I haven't done much in a while, but oh, I've got an assistant who's bringing over things, knitted things to show. You can come around here and pass it to me. Just don't come in front of the camera, okay? Okay. And also, it'd be really good if you'd go to sleep, okay? That's not you, Floss fans. That's the little person. I will show some of your stitching.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Excuse me while I just put this down. Well, I was saying I would show you some of my previous knitting finishes in future videos, but someone else has other ideas. So here is a wombat, and it's an Australian country spinners. I think if I was more prepared, I'd tell you where the patterns are from. I'll look them up and put them in the description box below. This is very well loved. It's quite a few years old now, so it's been cuddled, and I probably overstuffed it a bit, so some of the stitching's pulled a bit. But I was very proud of my construction of this. It's got some felt feet with little claws per the instructions. Stitched these ears separately, and yeah, my child named this wombat Mummy the Wombat because I made it for them, and they wanted to name it after me, which I thought was a really sweet way of honouring the fact that I made this for them. So I'm proud of that. And then the same child said to me, Mummy, for my birthday, can I please have a unicorn? So of course I was like, oh yeah, of course, darling. And so I was like, how do I make a unicorn? Now this one I did a lot of learning with. It was probably the most complicated thing I've knitted. I would consider myself a beginner to intermediate knitter. I'm not an advanced knitter. And particularly some of these soft toys are really tricky to sort of, like, I find them a bit complicated. And also I need to learn more about the anatomy of a horse, because as you'll see, this horse looks a bit like, or this unicorn looks a bit like an alien, because I don't think I put the eyes in the best spot. And I decided to go with sort of those teddy bear eyes that you can get. But anyway, I'll stop talking it down, because I am amazed that my child said to me, I would like a unicorn for my birthday, and for their birthday I whipped them up a unicorn, and here they are. Their mane is absolutely rockstar crazy. I love it. And it took me for flipping ever to place, because it, you know, with a crochet hook went in and put in lock by lock. Here's their lovely horn. This is all stitched using I think 8-ply. I think it might be Cleckheaton yarn. I'm going to have to look it up and put it in the description below. As I said, not prepared for this. But I loved the pastel. I pulled these from Stash actually. And they've got a little tail. And I like that they're a bit floppy and that their arms and legs are movable. And they sleep with my child and keep them safe and happy. And yeah, that makes me feel happy that I've given something. This is, you know, I make things for my children because it's a way that I like to express love for them. And yeah, so I'm proud of this stitch because of that. There's some of my knitting and evidence of me being multi-craft tool. And here's some further evidence, because the last whip I wanted to share with you tonight is I've started an English paper pieced hexagon quilt. The pattern is, I mean, you know, English paper pieced hexagon quilts of, you could do it without a pattern. You could also find lots of different patterns out there. But this came, I signed up to a monthly subscription from the Strawberry Thief in Western Australia. And they are an Australian distributor of Liberty of London fabrics. And they send each month some laser cut hexagons. So it just, I think for me, you know, sometimes reducing the steps in doing something particularly because I don't have a large craft space here, makes me feel, yeah, like some things are less intimidating to give a go. So the fact that they send the pre-cut shapes, and then I just have to, they also send the English paper, the paper templates that you put in the back of an English paper pieced quilt. And then they sent a pattern, by which I mean they explained how many hexagons I'd need to make a quilt of a certain size. And then Robin at the Strawberry Thief, she has some fantastic YouTube videos available on the Strawberry Thief's YouTube page, which I'll link below, that explains how she went about designing and choosing the placement of colours in her hexagon quilt, which is really a scrappy quilt in that it's got not many repeat fabrics in it, and she, you know, lots of different colours. And so her videos, not only how to do EPP, English paper piecing, and what materials you need, but also design ideas about colour placement and things, were just absolutely fantastic. Made me feel empowered to give it a go. And I love with English paper piecing that it's a hand stitched. It's not using a sewing machine. It makes it really transportable on the go, and I find it really meditative to do the whip stitch of stitching each piece together. So at the moment, I'm at the stage of the quilt that first, and here's my little sewing box that I got from Spotlight on clearance for like $10. I was really happy with that. So first I got the English paper piece papers and the hexagons, and I fabric glue basted them onto the template. And then, so here is like, this just looks like a box of chocolates to me. Like, it's just candy. Look at it. Beautiful, beautiful. And I did all of that. And now I'm focusing on making hexagon flowers. So putting 7 of them together to make a flower. And I'm using the suggested technique suggested by Robin from the Strawberry Thief of either doing a light centre with medium to darker fabrics on petals on the outside, or a dark centre with lighter petals on the outside, and then also being mindful of bigger motifs versus smaller motifs, and having a good balance. So I'm experimenting with that, and I love, my favourite bit I think so far is which pieces am I going to put into a flower. I spent ages coming up with combinations, and because I got such a good variety in the packs from each month from the Strawberry Thief, there's been lots to choose from. So I'll show you the flowers I've put together so far. Here's a lovely blue one. Here's a lovely red and blue one. And as I said, these are all Liberty of London fabrics. Hope you've all got a cup of tea here, because I've got quite a few other things I want to share with you tonight too. Here's purple and orange. I love that. That makes me feel very happy. I love that I've got the pastel in the middle and the darker on the outside. This one I think has got to be my favourite. It's a rainbow one. So I'll hold it back and then I'll zoom in a bit. Look at those gorgeous rainbow. These are sort of pastel-y rainbows and blues, the next one. And if you'd like to see better photos of these, head over to my Instagram. I'm at Ella Rose Vines. That's in the description box below. And I tend to post a picture every time I do a hexagon flower. This has got to be my second favourite in terms of which ones are my favourites so far. This pinks. I love this crazy, like this pattern. It's a turtle and a dog in clothing and a hedgehog in clothing and a badger doing something funny and rabbits and like so cute. And I love that, a bit like if you watch the video with me and Gran, like you know, she liked the idea of us as children lying under a quilt and trying to find matching patterns and find, you know, what pictures can we find of interest in this quilt. Well, I think I'm going to enjoy lying under this one and doing that, and if my kids are having a cuddle with me doing that. I do intend this to be for my own bed, and I've got a wonderful antique bed that my mum recently helped me acquire, and yeah, I think it's going to go wonderfully. It's a French antique bed. These greens make me feel very peaceful and calm. If I ever finish this quilt, which I will, but like, you know, I might be 150 years old, I will post a picture of the finished quilt on my bed. Beautiful. Just a couple more. I'm going to have fun putting these away later. Yellows, this is like a primary colours one to me, yellows and reds with a bit of blue. Another greens one. About to show you. Greens. And then a blues. So they're the ones I've done so far. It's going to be a really long process. I think I need 50 something florets of the, you know, flowers, and then I'll need more single ones to put down the side, and I'll have to decide the entire placement. So it's going to take me a long time, but I like that it's slow. I like that by the time I've made it, I'll have memories across spanning years of sitting and stitching and many peaceful hours past doing it. So they're my current works in progress that I've worked on recently. I have many other whips, but these are the ones that I've touched over the last little while since I last shared a cup of tea with you. And I was going to do this before I shared my whips, but I wanted to show you some previous finishes. So these are some finishes from 2020 when I first got into cross stitch, and they're fully finished and framed. They're for each of my children. They're both by Satsuma St. Hopefully there won't be too much glare. It's pretty glary. So if you hear giggling, that's a child that should be sleeping. So this is Voyage by Satsuma St, stitched for one of my children who loves bright colours and pirate ships. And so I absolutely loved this. This was just a feast for the eyes to stitch, and just a joy to pull out each colour. And seeing it stitched on 14 count black Aida, and I just used to put my iPhone with the light on underneath the Aida while I was stitching so I could see the holes. And I found that really useful. And I loved stitching the white main part of the boat and how that popped against the fabric. And I was able to gift this to my child for Christmas in 2020, which made me feel very happy. So that's one previous finish. And then the other one was for my other child. Oh, hopefully I'm not going to drop framed pieces and smash them everywhere. Another Satsuma St design. This is Garden Cat, and this child really loves cats, so that's why I chose this design. And I also loved the bright florals. And I love that sort of geometric sun with the intersecting clouds around it. And this was before I became confident with backstitch, so it's the cat's missing some backstitched whiskers because I couldn't make them look nice, and I'm proud of how my cross stitching has grown since then, because now I wouldn't hesitate to put in those whiskers. And in fact, I have finished another design in this series called Cactus Cat, which I'll show you another time, and that does feature the whiskers. So I think it's sort of going to be a nice way when I see them put next to each other on the wall to say, you know, this represents my growth in confidence in stitching. This piece also has some other interesting memories for me. I remember very vividly stitching this particular flower here during when the results of the US election were coming out. You know, I just sat and watched the coverage all day and stitched, and I remember stitching that flower quite vividly. And this is stitched on 14 count Rustico Ada by Zweigart. So that's Garden Cat. Very proud of that. And I get very proud when I see beautiful framed pieces on my to brighten my children's walls. And yeah, I gave them to each of my children for Christmas in 2020. I was really happy with that. So there's some previous finishes I wanted to share with you. So plans. Well, I don't want to be too hard and fast with myself, but I'd like to make some progress on trying to have an Easter stitch by the time it's Easter. So I want to do that. I want to keep going with my 4 Seasons Japanese pin cushions, and then I'd like to keep going on Otono because I'm absolutely loving it. So yeah, but then also my mum, when she watched my last Flosstube video, reminded me that she's got a significant birthday coming up this year, and how was I going with stitching something for her? And I've decided to take that subtle hint. I generally do try to stitch what I want when I want, and so if a piece isn't calling to me, it doesn't really matter. If a deadline's coming up, I don't stitch it. You know, the intended recipient will eventually get that piece, and I don't like to put too much pressure on myself with my stitching. But, you know, I would really love to give Mum something for her significant birthday, and she'd forgotten that a couple of years ago now, or, you know, 18 months ago, we sat down and chose a design that she'd like me to stitch for her. We didn't have her birthday in mind then because we thought I'd probably get it done a lot quicker. But I have pulled it out. I will check with her. Mum, if you're watching, tell me whether you're still interested in this one. But Mum said that she was interested in something floral and maybe something Art Deco. So I went on Etsy and I found this pattern called Art Deco Lotus. And I'll put who it's by, where is it? Cross Stitch Bonanza on Etsy, but I'll put it in the description box below. Now the pattern doesn't come with a cover sheet, so I've had to download the photo from Etsy, but it is just a digital rendering, it's not model stitched. But yeah, it's a very Art Deco stylized sort of floral design. And I decided to stitch it on some black Ada because I wanted to make those greens pop. And this will be an interesting experience for me because I haven't looked at it since I put it away, so I can't remember how pitifully small my start is. But I'm using the called for DMC, which I don't have. This was when I was still bobbinating, but so I don't have them on a floss drops or a floss ring. I will try to hold them up for you briefly. This is going to be a bit pointless, but got some nice teals and greens in there, which really attracted me to the pattern, with a nice pop of gold and some whites and greys. So I will put that back in, and let's see, guys, how floss fans, how far I've got. I don't think it's far. Yeah, it's a very small start. I'm not even sure what's up and what's down, but there we go. There's a start, blowing out a bit, and you're seeing through the black Ada. I probably should have put a board behind it, but I'm not that professional yet. But this is good. I've got it out to sort of remind myself where I'm at with it, to hopefully get re-inspired and re-motivated to stitch it for Mum for her birthday in July. So that's what I'd like to do a bit of work on in the next little while. So I will talk about, I'll do a little Save the Stitches segment, and then I'll go to haul. And then that will probably be it for this video. So Save the Stitches, as I've shared before, Kathleen at Situation Normal and Amanda May at Ardith Design are two floss tubers who I follow who like to do a Save the Stitches segment where they find thrift store or op shop stitches or stitches from family members, either unfinished or finished, and then they like to give them a new home, either finish them or squirrel them away into their own collections to be treasured rather than sitting away in an op shop. And this time I haven't been op shopping or antiquing, but the Save the Stitches have started to come to me. My mum provided me with some fantastic things out of her wardrobe, one of which so not clothing wardrobe, they're in her closet, in her cupboard is what I mean. One, we believe, was stitched by my stepdad's mother, Veronica, and she was a beautiful weaver and spinner and knitter, and she was obviously a stitcher as well, because there's this beautiful tablecloth, which once again I haven't ironed, and it's too big for me to show you it in its entirety. So I'll show you it bit by bit now. I'll just have to make sure what's the front and what's the back, because the stitching is so neat, it's very hard to see. But there's, in each four corner, there are these sort of rounded floral beautifulnesses in different colours. It's hard for me to decide which corner I like the best. And then in the middle, there are various smaller sort of posies in different colours stitched. So that is just a beautiful piece that I wanted to share with you. It's got that beautiful tatting on the edge. So I was delighted when Mum shared that with me. Now the next one I was even more delighted. Now I must admit I have seen this one a number of times over the years, but my understanding of it has shifted. So Mum's always told me about this piece that she started stitching when she knew she was pregnant with me and she wanted something for my nursery, and that she never finished it. And it's always been my understanding up till now. You know, I've seen it as a little girl and Mum has shown it to me a few times. But when she said it was unfinished, I thought there was still stitching needed to be done on it. And I keep encouraging Mum actually to pick up a needle and thread and do some stitching for the therapeutic qualities, but she keeps saying she doesn't have the patience for it and she doesn't have the staying power to finish anything. But I think Flosstube community, floss fans, we need to introduce Mum to our concept of when something's finished and our separate notions of finished and fully finished. So finished object, an FO or an FFO, a fully finished object. Because when Mum pulled this out of the closet and said, here you go, do you want to save this stitch? She told me this was unfinished, but it is finished by our Flosstube standards. So the stitching is done on it. It just hasn't been fully finished into its final cushion that it was intended to be for my nursery. So I think it's about time that I try to do something about this. I'm a bit nervous because it is, you know, now it will be 33 years old, or I suppose if she stitched it when she was pregnant with me, a bit older than that, this year. So I want to make sure that when it's stitched into a final object that it's got some integrity about it. So I might take it to someone professional, maybe get a quote to see how much it would cost. But I should probably just give it a go myself. But yeah, this is a cushion. I think it's either needlepoint, tapestry, or maybe long stitch. I'm not really across what type of canvas this is stitched on. But I think it's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's been sitting in a wardrobe for a very long time. It's done in wool. So with a bit of blocking, I think, you know, the tension on it is amazing. And it's sort of this bargello design down the sides and these beautiful sort of triangles in the middle. And I think it's absolutely gorgeous. And I don't think Mum should feel any shame that she never got it into my nursery. I have many stitches that I started for my kids that haven't been finished or used yet, and for other people's babies. And I think it's about time that I finished it and cherished it. in my own home. Just not in the original bedroom it was intended for, but in my adult bedroom, because I just love it. I love the wool, I love the pink, and I love that my mum stitched it with love while she was growing me. And Mum, stop thinking that you can't finish anything. You did finish something. There's more giggles in the background from someone who should be asleep. So that's my very, very special heirloom Save the Stitches for you this week. Some haul. Now, you know, it has been a little while since I've shared with you, so there is quite a bit of haul. But also I'm a proponent of let's not shame each other about our amount of haul. Not that anyone in the cross-stitch community I've come across shames anyone, but I'm feeling a little bit guilty about the amount of haul, but I think I should liberate myself from that because, you know, I support myself and put the roof over my head and support my 2 children, and if I wanted to spend a little bit of my income on something that I love, I should be able to do that. So that's my note to myself to stop shaming myself about my haul. So what is in my bag of goodness? My partner's mum gave me this beautiful handmade bag that she picked up on a holiday, and I've been loving it to take my stitches around, and this month it's got my haul in it. The first thing, I joined the Fabric of the Month Club from Fox and Rabbit, the Australian fabric dyers and also cross-stitch designers. Here are their details. I will put them below as well. And I decided to join the Fabric of the Month Club and get it in 32 count linen, even though I've never stitched on linen before, because I'd like to challenge myself to stitch on linen. And they this shouldn't spoil it for anyone because we're well into February now, so everyone's received their parcels if they're part of the club. But I love that they're choosing, or thus far have chosen, Australian flora to name their linen colours after, and they've given some information about that. So this month was the flannel flower. That's not easy to say. I think Michelle at Mama Loves UGB, when she said flannel flower, also got tongue-tied, so I feel in good company. So yeah, 32 count. It's a beautiful cream with some sort of dark grey mottling on it. Not dark grey, but just some very subtle, and I just absolutely am in love with it. It's something of great beauty, and it's inspiring me to bite the bullet and stop being scared of stitching on linen. So, yeah, I think that Fabric of the Month Club filled up pretty quickly, but there's a waiting list, and I've been told that, you know, more spots will become available. That's what the duo, Brennan and Karen from Fox and Rabbit, are saying on their Flosstube. If you're living under a rock and you don't follow their Flosstube, go and have a look at their Flosstube. It will keep you entertained and inspired for absolute hours. So that was a fantastic thing that I got. Now, forgive the glare on these. They're in these those plastic pouches that when they reseal, they can adhere to your pattern and rip your pattern. So I am going to take these out and put them in a display folder, but I haven't done so yet. But I'll keep them in the fabric, the glary pocket for now. This is the Red Deer sampler. It's a reproduction sampler charted by GGR Designs. And I got it from the Cruel Gobelin in Sydney. And it's one I've seen around a lot. A lot of floss tubers have stitched it. But I just can't go past those beautiful reds and that border and the red deer. And that is just so funky. So I haven't started kitting it up or anything, but I just knew I wanted this in my collection, and I do want to have it on my wall one day. And Mum, if you're watching, like, I'm not sure how you'll feel about the deer, but I feel like these colours are very you. And actually reminded me of an antique rug that you used to hang up in the hallway in one of our homes. So let me know. I'm not sure I've got it in me to stitch it twice, but I might love you enough to stitch this for you if you really want it. So I bought that pattern. I also picked up spot motif embroidery sampler from the Scarlet Letter in that bundle from the Cruel Gobelin. It's very hard. This is one of those, like, it's a hard copy photograph that's been pasted on the pattern. But do have a Google. It reminded me, it's the same pattern people as the peacock, peacock, badger, and a look at my other Flosstube video, but the other pattern I picked up, it reminded me of that. But I love that this has got a monkey, it's got peas in pods, it's got snails. I just fell in love with this. And it said it's a pattern for an advanced needle worker, but I'm ignoring that. And I can't wait to start this. It's got a borage flower up here. I just can't get over how beautiful it is. So I'm looking forward to starting that. And then, Catherine, if you're watching from Neat and Not, I'm a bit sheepish about sharing this because I'm starting to wonder whether you'll think I'm a bit too much of a fangirl and copycat. But when you've started And a Forest Grew by Rosewood Manor, I just loved all the trees, and love that you're going to rechart what you put in the centre, because what's in the centre wording doesn't really call to me either, but I would love to think about what I'm going to put in the middle. Dare I suggest a stitch along, Catherine? I know that I don't think stitch alongs are either of our thing really, in that, but maybe a start along. You've started, maybe I'll just join you in that and we can come up with a hashtag or something. Maybe there is an existing hashtag for this pattern, because I have seen some other floss tubers stitch it, like Julie, Kansas City Girl in a Colorado World. Lindy Stitches has a great, Stephanie Webb from Lindy Stitches has a great finish of this going back a few years. So if anyone wants to see what it looks like finished, scroll back through her catalogue. But anyway, I'll show you the pattern now. But can't get over these trees. And actually, full and fair disclosure, I do have another pattern by Carolyn Manning, which is all trees, that I've started as well. And when I first saw this pattern a while ago, Rosewood Manor and a Forest Grew, I thought, I can't buy that one until I finish that other massive tree pattern. But now I'm just like, stitch all the trees. Stitch all the birds, stitch all the flowers, stitch all the trees. That's basically what I want to do. I want to cover my walls in flowers and trees, and apparently crazy red deers as well, and bunnies in dresses. But, I would like to aspire, like my gran, to have walls full of art. Hers are her beautiful prints and paintings, but I would love to cover my walls until I don't have any wall space with beautiful cross stitch. And so also in haul, I got my thread of the month from Threads in Time Club at A Stitch in Time Hobart. They've got a great website, fantastic customer service, really recommend them. Excuse the plasticky sound, because I love floss, and I think you guys have enjoyed watching the flosses that I've shown. I will show you each of these in turn. So here's the classic Colorworks, beautiful cream, very useful, reminds me a bit of 712 or whatever that cream that we often use in DMC is. That is Eve's Leaves, a beautiful green. And I'm excited to see how I can work these into my stitches now that I'm gaining a bit of confidence, having done that colour conversion that I did for that Barbara Anna design that I did. I love this colour. I want a bedspread and walls and eyeliner and jewellery in this colour and cross stitch in this colour. It's so calming and deep and moody, but also calming to me. So that is called Erin Go Emerald. And English Ivy by Classic Colorworks. I just got a low power notification. Hopefully that didn't cut us off. It's a beautiful rich green. I'm now being passed notes from the gallery. What does this say? Come on stitching box. I think that's what, okay. I think this is the quid pro quo for getting someone to go to bed, so they want me to show their sewing box. Is that right, gallery? Yeah, we're doing pig oinking sounds. So, all right. I will interrupt this sharing of the Thread of the Month Club and haul section to show the stitching box. Now, this sewing box was actually Veronica's, who was my stepdad's mum. And I was lucky enough to be given it. My child, who I wasn't going to share the name of, but would enjoy using this. So this is a sewing box, and I filled it with odds and ends for Christmas. So some sparkly thread I had, and some crocheted flowers that came as a complimentary thing in an order. Covered buttons, I'm not sure if you can hear that from the back. So Laurie Holt inspired a lot of us in the Flosstube community to start doing covered buttons. So here's some that my child's made. Yeah, we find it really relaxing and fun.
But they're a little bit tricky.
A little bit tricky. I'm not sure if you can hear that in the background. Now this person should be going to sleep right now. And yeah, I gave them some fabric, quick unpick. I gave them some Christmas fabric, and we've made a beautiful cushion together, and we're enjoying exploring sewing together. So I've now shown the sewing box, so the people who should be asleep can go to sleep. All right, so we'll go back to the threads of the month club. Embers, this beautiful orange by Classic Colorworks, and Eggshell, another lovely neutral with a slightly more yellow tinge. Now here are the Gentle Arts. I thought I'd maybe get away with a shorter video, but then I talk about climate change for a significant amount of time and autism, and then love showing you my whips and save the stitches, and then we get to an hour plus, and hopefully you've enjoyed a cup of tea and you've scrolled through to the bits you enjoy. I certainly enjoy talking. This is really therapeutic for me, so thanks for indulging me if you're still with me. So this is Green with Envy, so another beautiful green. Got some great greens in this month. I love this. This is called Green Tea Leaf. And yeah, it does have that steeped. I love the variegation in that. Green Pasture. A bluey grey green. We've got Green Apple. That classic apple green. My granny has a tracksuit in this actually. Granny, if you're watching, I love that tracksuit. Grecian Gold, accurately described, and Grape Leaf. So many greens this month, but you can't have enough greens if you want to stitch all the flowers and all the leaves and all the trees. Actually, I should be brave and divert from the pattern and use all my random stash flosses greens for And a Forest Grew, and be extra fangirl inspired by Catherine, who is also just pulling random greens from stash. I'll mull on that and see whether I'm going to be brave enough. So also in haul, what do I have in here? Oh yeah, I picked up some patterns from Panochka on Etsy. And the patterns themselves haven't come with cover photos, but I'll show you the photos from the Etsy website. And, you know, in line with Stitch All the Birds and Stitch All the Trees and Leaves and things. Here's one. This is Primitive Autumn Leaves by Panochka on Etsy. And the other pattern I picked up was Birds and Berries, also by Panochka. And I loved the oranges. I'm not sure how well that's showing up to you. You're seeing me reflected in my own computer. So, and then I picked up the DMC. So I've put on a floss drop the DMC for the autumn leaves, and as you can see, it's going to be a very muted palette, and I'm really excited about that. And then I haven't bobbinated, and the DMC for Russell for the berries and birds, and I'm missing a few colours, but it's a gorgeous, bright, cheerful palette, so I'm excited about that. And I picked up some more Rustico, rustling, some more Ada for that. So that's all my haul. That's all my stitching. That's all my standing on soapboxes that I intend to do with you today. I don't intend to stop doing that in videos, so hopefully you enjoy that or learn something. But thanks for spending some time with me. Hope you've had a cup of tea or a glass of wine or got some good stitching done. Thanks for all of the wonderful comments and support and interaction. I absolutely love it. Every comment that I get just fills my heart with joy. So yeah, keep it coming. And until I see you next, let's all take each day one stitch at a time. Thanks. Bye.